Chapter 3. Perilous Journey. Escape from the city. The air hung thick and heavy, a suffocating blanket of dust and smoke. A low, guttural rumble vibrated through the earth, a tremor that resonated in Sarah's chest, mirroring the frantic beat of her heart. Above, the sky, usually a vibrant blue, was choked with an ominous, ash-laden gray. The city, once a bustling metropolis teeming with life, now resembled a decaying carcass, its once proud structures groaning under the weight of impending doom. This wasn't the gentle tremor of an earthquake. This was the prelude to cataclysm. Beside her, Daniel, a grizzled veteran of the Covenant, gripped his worn Bible, his knuckles bone-white. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by a grim determination, his eyes reflecting the fear that gnawed at the edges of their hearts. "We have to go, now," he urged, his voice barely audible above the growing cacophony of the approaching disaster. "The Lord has shown us the way." The group, a small band of believers from the Covenant, moved with a frantic, almost desperate urgency. There were 8 of them in total: Sarah, Daniel, Elder Michael, the Covenant's wise and steadfast leader, Esther, a young woman whose unwavering faith was a beacon of hope amidst the gathering storm, David, a former engineer whose technical expertise proved invaluable, Rebecca, a nurse whose calming presence brought solace, and 2 younger members, Joshua and Leah, both brimming with a fierce, youthful faith. Each carried a small pack containing essentials: water, non-perishable food, first aid supplies, and, most importantly, their Bibles. Their escape route was a treacherous labyrinth of crumbling streets and deserted alleyways, a maze through which they navigated with a combination of instinct and prayer. The earth lurched again, more violently this time, sending a cascade of debris raining down upon them. They pressed themselves against a crumbling brick wall, their bodies trembling, not only from the tremor, but from the sheer terror that gripped them. They huddled together, forming a circle of faith, their hands clasped in prayer. Elder Michael's voice rose above the din, a powerful prayer for protection and guidance echoing through the devastated streets. As the ground continued to shake, buildings around them collapsed in a symphony of shattering glass and groaning concrete. They moved on, their hearts pounding in their chests like war drums, fueled by a desperate need for survival, but also by the unwavering belief that God would see them through this tribulation. The Lord's presence wasn't a palpable feeling, but a quiet certainty that settled deep within their souls, a quiet assurance that whispered amidst the chaos. Their escape was fraught with peril. They had to navigate around fallen debris, dodge collapsing buildings, and avoid the panicked, desperate masses fleeing the city. The air was thick with smoke and dust, making it difficult to breathe, let alone see. Fear gnawed at them, but their faith held firm. They moved as a unit, relying on each other for support, encouragement, and strength. Each whispered prayer, each shared word of encouragement served as a lifeline in the storm. At one point, they had to cross a ravaged bridge, its concrete deck fractured and teetering precariously. David, ever the pragmatist, assessed the situation, identifying a seemingly stable section. However, as they started to cross, a section of the bridge gave way, sending a section of the roadway crashing into the abyss below. Joshua, lagging behind, slipped and fell. A collective gasp escaped their lips. Before anyone could react, Esther, with an astonishing display of strength, reacted instantly. She leaped forward, grabbing Joshua's hand just as he was about to plunge into the chasm below. With the combined strength of David and Esther, they pulled him to safety. A silent prayer of thanksgiving rose up from their hearts. As they moved further from the city's heart, the intensity of the tremors began to subside, but the air still hung heavy with the stench of destruction and despair. But even amidst the devastation, a glimmer of hope shone through. They passed a small group of people huddled together, praying, their faces etched with fear but also with a quiet resignation. As the Covenant group moved on, Elder Michael stopped and shared a moment of silent prayer with them, offering words of comfort and encouragement. The simple act of sharing their faith in the face of despair spoke volumes, a testament to their faith and God's unwavering love. As night fell, they reached the outskirts of the city. The landscape was desolate, but the night sky was clear, studded with stars that seemed to wink down upon them, offering a message of hope in the darkness. They found refuge in a small, abandoned farmhouse, its walls battered but still standing. They cleaned the dust and debris from their clothes, shared what little food they had left, and gathered around a makeshift fire, the flames providing not only warmth, but also a sense of companionship and comfort. They were safe for now, but their perilous journey was far from over. The shadowy organization that sought to exploit the apocalypse was still out there, and their escape had been far from unnoticed. They knew that their faith would be tested further, their trust in God challenged relentlessly. But as they sat huddled around the flickering firelight, their hearts filled with a mixture of fear and hope, they knew they were not alone. They had each other, they had their faith, and most importantly, they had God's unwavering presence and protection. They found comfort in Psalm 91. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. This verse had become their anthem, their declaration of faith and trust, even in the face of the unimaginable. As the night deepened, each member reflected on the day's events. Sarah, recalling her past trauma, felt a surge of gratitude for her newfound strength. She had come to rely less on her own capabilities and more on God's guidance. She realized that this ordeal wasn't simply about survival, it was a spiritual journey, a refinement of faith. The unwavering faith of the younger members, Joshua and Leah, had inspired her, showing her the enduring power of faith in the face of overwhelming fear. Daniel, ever practical, carefully assessed their situation. They were safe for now, but they needed to make a plan. Their journey was far from over. They needed to find a secure haven, a place where they could regroup and plan their next steps. Their faith was their compass, guiding them forward. Elder Michael, ever the spiritual leader, led them in a heartfelt prayer of thanksgiving for their safe escape, a prayer of supplication for continued guidance and protection, and a prayer for strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. His words resonated deeply within them, reaffirming their faith and strengthening their resolve. Their escape had been miraculous, a testament to the power of faith and prayer. Yet, they knew that the worst was yet to come. The journey ahead would be long and arduous, filled with uncertainties and dangers. But the covenant, bound together by their faith in God and the unwavering hope for His promise, braced themselves for what the future held. Their journey wasn't merely a flight from disaster. It was a pilgrimage of faith, a testament to God's unwavering love in a world consumed by fear and chaos. They were pilgrims on a journey to the promised land, where faith would meet reality and hope would triumph over despair. Trust and faith. The dust swirled around their battered vehicle, a rusty pickup truck that had miraculously survived the initial earthquake tremors. Inside, Sarah gripped the worn rosary beads, her knuckles white. Beside her, Elijah, a seasoned pastor with eyes that reflected both weariness and unwavering faith, murmured a prayer. Behind them, young Timothy, his face pale with fear, clutched a tattered Bible. And in the back, Martha, a woman whose strength belied her age, hummed a hymn, her voice a fragile beacon in the swirling chaos. Their escape from the ravaged city had been nothing short of miraculous. A seemingly impassable roadblock had inexplicably cleared just as they arrived, a gap in the debris offering a narrow passage to freedom. It felt like divine intervention, a clear sign from God that He hadn't abandoned them. Yet, the sense of relief was fleeting, overshadowed by the daunting reality of their perilous journey. The landscape stretched before them, a desolate wasteland scarred by the cataclysm. The once fertile fields were now barren, the vibrant green replaced by a grim, ashen gray. The air, thick with the stench of sulfur and decay, made each breath a labored effort. Their first trial came swiftly. The truck, already struggling under the weight of their meager supplies, sputtered and died, its engine giving up the ghost with a final, wheezing sigh. Panic threatened to engulf them, but Elijah's calm voice cut through the rising despair. "This is a test, my children," he said, his voice resonating with an unwavering faith that seemed to fill the oppressive silence. "A test of our faith and our trust in God's providence." Timothy, his young faith wavering, voiced his fear. "But Pastor, what if he doesn't provide? What if we're stranded here alone?" His voice cracked, betraying his vulnerability. Martha, her hand resting on his shoulder, offered a comforting smile. "Have faith, son," she replied softly. "God's promises are sure, even in the darkest of times. Remember the scriptures? He will never forsake us." Elijah, seeing their faltering faith, knelt and began to pray. His prayer wasn't a desperate plea for immediate rescue, but a quiet conversation with God, filled with gratitude, trust, and unwavering belief. He prayed for strength, for guidance, and for the grace to endure the trials that lay ahead. As he prayed, a profound sense of peace settled over the group, a calm that transcended the harsh reality of their situation. Their faith was tested again when they encountered a group of desperate survivors, their faces etched with hunger and desperation. These weren't the welcoming faces of fellow believers. They were hardened by fear and driven by survival instinct. Their eyes, hungry and wild, held a primal desire for what little food and water the covenant had managed to salvage. Tension thickened the air, a palpable threat hanging between the two groups. Sarah, her heart pounding, instinctively reached for the small bag containing their remaining supplies. Sharing meant risking their own survival, their already fragile hope hanging by a thread. Yet, Elijah, with his unwavering conviction, insisted they share. "We are our brother's keeper," he declared, his voice steady and strong. "Jesus taught us to love our neighbors as ourselves. Our faith is not about hoarding what little we have, but sharing it in accordance to God's will." It was a challenging decision, one that tested the limits of their trust in God's provision. But as they shared their meager supplies, a transformation occurred. The desperate survivors, initially hostile, responded with a surprising humility. A shared prayer, offered by Elijah, bridged the gap between two groups separated by fear and desperation. The encounter was a testament to the power of faith and compassion, a reminder that even in the depths of despair, hope could flourish. The journey continued, each day fraught with new challenges. They faced scorching sun, bitter cold, and the constant threat of wild animals. They navigated treacherous terrains, their path marked by exhaustion, hunger, and moments of profound discouragement. Yet, amidst these trials, their faith grew stronger, their bonds deepened by shared hardships and unwavering reliance on God's grace. One evening, huddled around a small fire, Martha shared a story from the scriptures, the words resonating with a deep-seated comfort. "Remember," she said, her voice laced with conviction, "when God led the Israelites through the wilderness, He provided for them, even when it seemed impossible. He will do the same for us." Our faith is not merely belief. It's a trust in God's unwavering love and promises, even in the face of our most significant challenges. We may be weak, but God is strong. Timothy, inspired by her words, found his faith rekindled. He took out his Bible and began to read aloud, passages filled with hope and encouragement, verses that spoke of God's unending mercy and his promises of a new beginning. His voice, initially hesitant, grew stronger, filled with a newfound assurance. The following days brought more trials. They faced a raging storm, the wind and rain threatening to sweep them away. They encountered a raging river, its currents swift and unforgiving. Yet, every time they were faced with a seemingly insurmountable obstacle, a way would miraculously appear. A fallen tree would create a makeshift bridge. A sudden lull in the storm would allow them to cross the river. These providential events were not merely coincidences. They felt like divine interventions, testaments to God's unwavering guidance and protection. Sarah, initially overwhelmed by fear, found her faith blossoming amidst the hardships. She had always believed, but the experiences during the escape brought a newfound depth to her understanding of faith. It wasn't a passive acceptance of beliefs, but an active trust in God's power, a deep-rooted reliance on His grace in the face of adversity. She found herself praying more often, not just for their survival, but for the strength to remain faithful and to continue their journey, carrying the hope of salvation to those in need. Elijah, the steadfast pillar of their group, observed the growth in the faith of his companions with profound satisfaction. He knew that their journey was not merely a physical escape from destruction, but a spiritual pilgrimage, a testament to the transforming power of faith. They were not merely surviving. They were growing stronger, more resilient, and their faith had become a shield protecting them from the despair that threatened to engulf them. Their journey was far from over, the perils still lurking ahead, and the path to their promised land remained uncertain. Yet, as they looked at each other, their faces bearing the marks of hardship but reflecting the radiant light of their faith, they knew they were not alone. God was with them, walking beside them, guiding their steps, sustaining their hope, and strengthening their faith, one step at a time. Their trust in God was not simply a belief. It was a living, breathing reality, a foundation upon which they built their courage and hope. They knew that even if the end was uncertain, their faith would see them through. The path may be treacherous, but their faith was a sturdy vessel, carrying them safely across the turbulent waters of their journey. Divine intervention. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then died, leaving them stranded in a desolate valley, the setting sun casting long, ominous shadows. Dust devils danced across the cracked earth, mocking their helplessness. Silence descended, broken only by the frantic beating of Timothy's heart, audible even above the wind's mournful sigh. Sarah's rosary beads slipped through her fingers, a silent testament to her growing anxiety. Even Martha's hymn had faded, replaced by a tense stillness. Elijah, however, remained calm, his eyes fixed on the darkening sky. He had faced countless trials in his ministry, but this felt different. This felt desperate. He knew their supplies were dwindling, their hope waning with the light. They were surrounded by a landscape that seemed to mirror the turmoil within their hearts, barren, unforgiving, and seemingly devoid of life. "Father," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the wind, "we are lost. We are weak. We are at your mercy." He closed his eyes, the weight of their situation pressing down on him, a heavy burden only faith could bear. He prayed for strength, for guidance, for a miracle. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the valley, a sound that initially sent shivers of fear down their spines, but then morphed into something else entirely, something hopeful. It wasn't the sound of the earth groaning under another tremor, but a deep, resonant hum, unlike anything they had ever heard before. It grew steadily louder, vibrating through the very ground beneath their feet. Timothy, wide-eyed with a mixture of fear and awe, pointed towards a distant ridge. Emerging from the gathering gloom was a sight so extraordinary, so breathtaking, that it stole their breath away. A shimmering light, an ethereal glow, pulsed and expanded, growing brighter with each passing moment. It wasn't the harsh glare of the setting sun, but a soft, radiant illumination that seemed to emanate from within itself, bathing the landscape in an otherworldly luminescence. As it drew closer, they could discern its form. It was a magnificent stallion, its coat the color of burnished gold, its mane and tail flowing like liquid moonlight. Its eyes, large and luminous, shone with an intelligence that transcended the animal realm. It moved with a grace and power that defied description, a majestic creature seemingly born from the very fabric of hope itself. The horse approached them slowly, its hooves making no sound upon the rocky ground. It stopped a few feet from the truck, its head lowered slightly, as if in greeting. Its breath, warm and gentle, caressed their faces. A feeling of profound peace settled over them, a sense of calm amidst the storm. Sarah, still clutching her rosary, let out a soft gasp. It's a miracle," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her fear gave way to an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Elijah, his heart pounding with a mix of awe and wonder, knelt down and touched the horse's velvety nose. "God has answered our prayers," he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "He has sent us a messenger, a symbol of his unwavering love and protection." The horse remained still for a moment, its gaze sweeping over each of them, as if acknowledging their plight and offering comfort. Then, it turned and headed towards a narrow pass in the mountains, its golden coat shimmering under the ethereal light. It seemed to be beckoning them forward, inviting them to follow. "This is our way," Elijah declared, a new strength evident in his voice. "God has shown us the path. We must trust him and follow where he leads." With renewed hope and a sense of divine guidance, they climbed into the truck. As they followed the magnificent stallion, the rocky path seemed to miraculously clear before them, obstacles vanishing as if by an unseen hand. The steep inclines flattened, the treacherous crevices widened, and the difficult terrain became surprisingly navigable. Throughout the journey, the golden horse remained their guide, its presence a constant reassurance of God's protective hand. Sometimes it would gallop ahead, showing them the safest path, and sometimes it would slow down, patiently waiting for them to catch up. The ethereal light from its coat illuminated their way, piercing through the darkness and dispelling the shadows of fear. The terrain continued to shift and change as they traversed the mountain range. The sheer cliffs seemed to shrink, the ravines to bridge, creating safe passage in what moments before seemed like impossible obstacles. The very landscape seemed to bend to their needs, guided by the majestic creature and the invisible hand of God. They traveled through what seemed like an unending night, yet the golden glow of the horse and its ethereal aura was sufficient to guide them, sustaining their hope in the darkness. As the first rays of dawn began to paint the eastern sky, they emerged from the mountains and into a broad, fertile valley, a stark contrast to the desolate wasteland they had left behind. The golden horse stopped before a small, rustic farmhouse, nestled amidst rolling green hills. Smoke curled from its chimney, a sign of warmth and welcome. The site was a stark contrast to the barren wasteland they had endured. It was a sanctuary, a place of refuge, a promised land that seemed too beautiful to be true. The horse nuzzled Timothy's hand before turning and disappearing as swiftly as it had come. The golden light faded, leaving behind a quiet stillness, a profound peace that permeated their being. They stood in awe, their hearts filled with gratitude and wonder, knowing that they had witnessed something truly miraculous. Elijah knelt down, his face etched with humility and gratitude. "Thank you, Father," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "For your protection, for your guidance, for your unwavering love. You have shown us your power, your mercy, and your grace." Sarah, her voice trembling, added her own heartfelt prayer of thanksgiving. Martha joined in, her voice strong and clear, a testament to her unshaken faith. Even Timothy, his fear replaced by an awe-inspiring sense of hope, murmured a simple amen. They approached the farmhouse, their hearts filled with a renewed sense of purpose. The journey had been perilous, the challenges immense. Yet, through it all, God had remained their steadfast companion, their protector, their guide. Their faith, once tested to its limits, had been strengthened and refined, forging an unbreakable bond between them and their Creator. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but they also knew that they were not alone. God had demonstrated his power, his unwavering presence, and his steadfast love through this miraculous intervention. Their hearts overflowing with this divine reassurance, they looked forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, strengthened by their shared experience and their unyielding faith in God's plan. The farmhouse, a symbol of hope and refuge, awaited them, a testament to the extraordinary power of faith and the divine intervention that had brought them safely to this place of rest.